Nothing is as reassuring or beautiful as a parent or grandparent holding a child's hand or putting an arm around them to show care, protection, and security. It's the basic bond of human kindness and deep, deep love. I needed that reassurance when I was 4 years old. I was playing in the garden of my grandparents' house in Erbil, Kurdistan, when there was a loud thump at the garden door. It wasn't a normal knock, and even I knew because it startled me. My uncle walked out and I ran to him for protection, an instinct telling me to be close to an adult. He put his hands on my shoulders as he opened the door. 2 soldiers stood there, stern eyes, no smile, the face of authority. They wanted my mother for questioning and sounded angry. They wanted to know where my father was hiding. He was a poet and a fierce protector of Kurds. One of the soldiers looked down at me and said, "Is this her child?" My uncle was forced to say yes. As the 2 men took my mother, they gestured to me and said, "Take her as well." They opened the doors to a vehicle with blacked out windows, and immediately there was a howl and a cry. They had my paternal grandparents. My grandfather was my uncle, mother, and grandparents begged them not to take me, but the soldiers ignored all pleas and forced us inside, slamming the doors shut. I was numb, I wasn't crying, but I knew something was wrong. I stayed quiet. We were taken to a prison where they interrogated my mother and grandparents, but they didn't give in. After what seemed like ages, we were taken to another location. We stopped at a desolate, dry place. There were 2 buildings. Faces of women and children rushed towards the small windows. It was a prison full of innocent Kurds. Their crime, being Kurdish. My grandfather was separated from us and was taken to one building. I could see he was very scared, and later found out he was tortured. My grandmother held my hand as we walked into the other building, women and children back to back. We were there for 2 weeks until soldiers called out family names, and ours was one of them. We were taken outside, and there were 2 buses and 2 diggers waiting for us to take us to our graves. The adults began wailing, crying, and screaming, shouting, "Don't do this, please." But the soldiers shook off all pleas and forced us in. My grandfather was already in the bus, and he was crying and not happy to see us. But yet he opened his arms to hug me. When the doors closed, whispers of prayers and crying were all I could hear. And as we jolted along the uneven road, we didn't know where we were going. We stopped in a location and then continued. Suddenly we stopped again, but this time the doors opened and 2 soldiers stood there. They said, "We're Kurdish, don't worry, we're not going to kill you. But you need to disappear and pretend as if you're dead. Don't go back to your homes." Years later, I found out that the drivers changed and they were there to rescue us. What followed was one miracle after another. We went into hiding, dodged mines, bombs, and bullets to reach safety. The bombing was so intense sometimes that you'd close your eyes, hold your ears, tense up, and just wait to die. And that became our normal. After a year of horrific experiences and underground networks, we were smuggled into Iran. My father followed us, but not as we left him. He was poisoned and on the verge of dying. Another act of the brutal regime. So yes, I am a genocide survivor. I am fortunate. Was it fate? Was it luck? Was it the grace of God? I don't know. But what I do know is what I would have endured if I'd have been on another bus. 30 years later, I saw footage of what Saddam Hussein's soldiers did to Kurds or any families whose names were on the death list. It shows a pit 4 to 5 feet deep, full of people lying down, crammed together, all ages. And no, they're not dead, they're all alive. The soldiers can be seen slowly shoveling sand over the live victims, who have their hands over their faces, trying to protect themselves from the sand that's building up on top of them, knowing they're being buried alive. This is part of the torture. By the edge of the pit is a boy, probably about 10 to 11 years old. He's covering his face with one hand and holding up the other to the soldiers, begging and pleading with them, crying and choking on the sand as he begs. They empty another shovel of sand over his face. But still his hand stretches out for mercy, but there is none. I think of him every single day, and all I want to do is stretch out my hand and hold his, tell him I care, that I'll protect him, and he is loved. But I can't, because I'm here and he's not. When I replay this in my mind, almost daily, I feel a great sense of guilt, loss, and pain for the hundreds of thousands of Kurds that lost their lives to such a brutal regime. But my biggest wish now is not for revenge, but to heal. We need to heal so much that is wrong, but it takes time and courage to reconcile with the past. I've been blessed to experience many people extend their hand to me. And to me, the hand is the most important symbol of peace. With an extended hand, we offer to create friendship, we propose an alternative, we seek truth, we bring hope, reconciliation, and forgiveness. Above all, we give comfort and reassurance. So when someone stretches out their hand to you, just as that boy did to his tormentors, take that hand and show you care. Thank you. Thank you.